right, my presentation is about neural machine translation, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I know, you've probably been to quite a lot of neural machine translation presentation over the last few months. I mean, there have been thousands of translation industry webinars, digital conferences, and a lot of virtual meetups. And there is always one hot, big, inescapable topic. It's machine translation, the current superhero of the machine translation world. I mean, is there anything new to say about it? I mean, do you need to hear about the entire history of MT again for the 100th or 1000th time this year? Don't worry, my presentation is going to be a bit different, so please stay with me, don't leave. I'd like to focus more and I'd like to focus more on the supertext perspective, and also try to take an angle from the freelancer perspective. I will share our experience with neural machine translation at Supertext, where we found it useful, where it's still pretty useless, and also where we see a lot of potential. And then also we'll take a practical look at what we expect from post editors. And finally, it's also time that you can at the end you can give me feedback and ask questions. So please feel free, as I mentioned before, feel free to submit questions in the featured questions section. At any point during the presentation, I'll address these questions, or at least I try to address most of the questions at the end of the session. This is what a lot of people say: machine translation will replace humans. In Star Trek, a television series from the 60s, they all wear small, tiny earphones that can translate any language simultaneously into English. So this, up to now, this fiction hasn't turned into reality, but it might soon. I mean, machine translation has been heralded on countless occasions as a replacement for human translation. So should we be scared? What do you guys think? We will be sharing a poll right now. So does the spread of neural machine translation make you concerned about your job? And there is also another question that will pop up when you click on the link. How often do you use NMT in your work? Please submit an answer if you'd like to, and we will talk about it after the first break. It will take a while to review the results. Thanks for filling your answers in. So, machine translation, even though a lot of people are scared, it will never replace humans. There's a nice quote from IBM from 1954. To translate just one segment necessitates 2.5 times as many instructions to the computer as are required to simulate the flight of a guided missile. So even if today's technology is a bit more advanced than back in the 50s, I think this example shows very nicely how complicated and complex actually human language is. I mean, a machine just can't capture all the nuances of human languages. And also, I think humans are very complex and we're very adaptable as well. So that means we can adapt to new environments, we can adapt to new technology, new challenges, and we can open up for ourselves doors to new opportunities. So machine translation isn't a hype that will eventually fade away. It's an inescapable and essential tool in our translation repertoire and will become even more important than it is already today. It will help us improve efficiency, and it will therefore also free up time for us to focus also on other work. So, I mean, it's quite normal, or let's say it's quite human, that we are afraid of new things, new technologies. So I think therefore it is important that we put this new technology, neural machine translation, a bit in a bigger context. For example, when the first CAT tools emerged, it was met with quite a lot of skepticism. Some translators thought that the computer-aided tool would destroy the art of translation, or it would just put their jobs in jeopardy. And I mean, nowadays, most of you guys work with a cat tool, and it's just not possible to work without a cat tool because it helps you so much. So, well, we think that the same applies to machine translation. It is met with skepticism. People aren't familiar with it, or not yet, because it's still quite new, and therefore they resent it. I mean, I think it has such a potential to make our lives so much easier, and also to improve efficiency so much. So let's take a look now how we use NMT at Supertext. And for that, let's take a look first at what actually our clients want. We're seeing more and more clients from all sectors actually that are interested in NMT. It is a topic in almost all discussions with major clients. Just the other day, I was at a meeting with a new major client, and they brought up the topic quite quickly. So obviously everyone wants to talk about it. NMT allows clients to translate more content than ever before. Some wanted to translate previously untranslated content, or others want NMT to tackle content that was previously translated by humans. It lowers cost, and it allows us to tackle higher volumes in shorter turnaround times. And actually, there has never been a higher demand on translating content. There are not even enough translators in the world to translate all the copy that companies want to have translated. So there is a huge potential. Now let's come back to the title of my presentation, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Let's start with the good, where we find NMT to be most useful is, as I just mentioned, for tackling high volume, low visibility text, for example, internal communication, or also product reviews, support documents, product text, notes, and just simply memos as well. It can also be strong for certain technical texts with quite a simple sentence structure. At Supertext, as I just said before as well, we have a lot of clients from a lot of different industries, for example, car industry, insurance, retail, and telecommunication, who are interested in NMT, and we are already using it for them. I guess some of you guys have already post-edited text for some of these bigger clients. So for us, it's quite clear that usually it's not the client's industry, but rather the text type and the text style and the language pair that they order that defines whether NMT can be used or not. And now let's take a look at the bit more of the negative side of NMT, and also how we think we can actually tackle those problems. So some of these problems are creative content, contextless content, and also terminology. Terminology is also it can be quite tricky to use NMT. So let's first talk about creative. I mean, NMT is a machine. It's not human, so it has absolutely zero imagination. It doesn't, or understanding of localization and local specific requirements. So if you ask it to give you a few creative options, for example, for a startup's new slogan, yeah, you'll probably be very disappointed, and you might even lose your client. But actually, at Supertext, we've already used machine translation as well for transcreation projects. So we have one big client that is based in LA. We use MT to translate the source text into the target language, and then we send this target language text to a non-bilingual copywriter, who then use it as a form of a brief. Obviously, we then use a bilingual proofreader afterwards, but it allows us to use monolingual copywriters who are very talented in writing copy that can be used as transcreations. By the way, last year at the Freelancer Convention, Christy gave a talk about transcreation, so feel free to check out our website and watch the presentation of last year about transcreation. Let's talk about contextless. NMT struggles when there is no context. Lists of abstract terms are tough. because NMT is still sentence-based. So basically that means it translates a sentence, then promptly forgets it and translates the next one without taking the surrounding sentences into account. The result: coherence issues, mismatched genders and pronouns, inconsistent terminology, and a lot of work for you guys if you're doing the post editing. It will take a lot of time to fix the same mistakes multiple times. But also there is hope, and we hear actually that some MT developers are now working on paragraph-based MT. So in the near future, NMT might also be used for texts with less context. And of course, we will hop on this train and test these new engines as soon as they are available. As I mentioned at the beginning, terminology heavy, this is also quite a problem. Unless you train an engine with millions of client segments and the term base, it's likely that terminology in a machine translated text will still be inconsistent, and you as a post editor will spend a lot of time correcting the same term multiple times, aligning terms with the client term base. But also there is hope. Several MT providers are now looking into term-based integration. Also, there are dynamic learning technologies, which mean that you correct the term once, and then the term will then be auto-corrected the next time it appears. Actually, we are currently testing one of these dynamic learning engines, and they can be used to create customized solutions for each client. This means the more we use the engine for this client, the better the MT output gets, and therefore also the terminology. We'll learn the terminology of the client. Rare language pairs, that's also where a lot of engines struggle, where not enough data exists for the engine to be trained to an adequate level. For example, Chinese, where the grammar and the syntax differs widely from European languages. And in this area, we're still gathering experience, and perhaps also where local MT developers with local knowledge can have the edge over giants such as Google and DeepL. So there is quite a lot of potential there. Now let's talk about the ugly. I mean, we've all certainly already come across some hilarious translations into our mother tongue or into English when we traveled to a foreign country. I mean, let's just look at the two pictures: eating carpets strictly prohibited, or our food is guaranteed not to cause pregnancy. Yeah, I don't think that was a human who translated that. Or also, if you look at one of the examples I put in, if you guys understand German, there is a German phrase. It's an idiom, and I mean, in English, it just doesn't make sense at all. And also, there is another example. Actually, one of you guys sent it in. As we see, I mean, there is still, even MT has come a long way over the last few years, and we see fewer and fewer of these catastrophic fails in our main languages, at least. We're still very, very far from perfection. Now let's take a closer look at the challenges that we face at Supertext regarding NMT. I mean, NMT is not a blanket strategy at Supertext. We want to use it to build efficiency and to tackle previously untranslated volumes, but we don't want to sacrifice quality. I mean, our name says it, Supertext. We're not going to deliver texts that are not super. So we do, I mean, there are a few challenges we face. So firstly, challenging clients. We need to educate clients about where NMT makes sense and where it doesn't. Some clients, they want it for everything. So we need to explain why that's not a good idea. We need to take the consulting angle. And not only that, we need to prepare a customized strategy for using, for example, light post editing, full post editing, human translation, and transcreation to ensure we can meet their price and obviously also their quality needs. Then also pricing is a challenge. MT output quality differs so much between language pairs, industries, text type, and even between two texts of the same type. So providing a rule of thumb price for major client is always a challenge. Also often as if you as a freelancer, you will find that you can post editing a text faster than the predicted word per hour for that specific client maybe, while another text might take you significantly longer. Also, third is workflow. That's also a challenge. We have to continuously streamline processes and standardize our workflows to make life as easy as possible for you, for the post editors, and also for our internal people, the project managers and the language managers. Then another challenge is the engine overload. For us, it's very important that we stay on top of the best engines. We need to test trained engines and compare them to generic offerings like DeepL, or also we need to look more into new dynamic learning technologies, as we are actually testing currently, so that we can meet our clients' wishes and choose the best customized solution to their specific needs. Now let's talk a little bit about the future of NMT at Supertext. For us, NMT is an expansion of our existing offering. It will not replace what we do best. We are famous for creative translation and localization, and our clients, they know that, and we won't lose sight of it. So we will always need super trans creators and specialist translators to tackle high value content. And as I said before, we see it as a tool that will make us and you guys, that will help you guys and us to improve efficiency. There is a growing interest from existing clients as well, as I also mentioned before, and almost in every client meeting it comes up. So we need to build MT also out to more clients. The demand on translating content, it has never been higher than today. Also, there is light and full post editing. So to date, almost all demand has been for full post editing. We are also seeing, though, some more interest in light post editing. So light post editing means just getting the main message across and not focusing on style or minor spelling and grammar mistakes. I think in the coming months you will probably be seeing more jobs coming through as post editing, full or light post editing. And by the way, if you're not sure what exactly it means, check out our service description in the freelancer portal, or just talk to the head language manager. Then the last point, ongoing learning and training opportunities. This is especially important when it comes to light and full post editing. By the way, we are looking into doing some webinars in the next few months. So make sure to subscribe to our newsletter and so that you won't miss the latest news on our webinars. So overall, we need to start thinking about quality rather than services. I mean, we're the expert. We advise or consult clients on what quality level they might need. And we make the decision on the most efficient tool or the most efficient service to get us to that quality. So that means the clients need to consider mostly what is the target audience, what's the visibility, what's the turnaround time, and what's the purpose of the text. And then we can properly consult the client and offer the best possible customized solution. Now, let's take a look at how you guys can become a super post editor, what we expect when you guys are post editing jobs for us. I think it's important to know that not every translator will necessarily be a good post editor. Post editing is not the same as proofreading. So let me share some tips. I mean, very simple. Practice makes perfect. There is research that has shown that experience is the single most important factor in the translation productivity. And this is even more true with post-editing. As you gain experience, you will develop techniques to help you use the empty output to your advantage and in the most efficient way. Also, we give you feedbacks and tips on a job level. In addition to life experience, there are various resources on our website, and there are different courses available to help you improve your post-editing skills. I will share some links at the end of the presentation, so you can then click on these when the presentation will be shared at the end. Another point is very important. Get tech savvy. I mean, you can use NMT to boost your own productivity. To do this, you need to know your Trados or any other cat tool you work with inside out, so that you can actually get the best out of NMT. So make sure that you're always on top of the latest technologies when it comes to your cat tools. Then also another point, don't over or under edit. Always use as much of the empty output as possible. Before you start, make sure you know what quality level the client wants and who the target audience is. This will help you decide what changes to make and how extensive they should be. And also, I mean, if there's a light post editing, you kind of have to accept that you will not deliver a perfect text. And I think this can be hard for many linguists, as we're used to deliver always the best quality. And then the last point, I think this is the most important point. This is also to coming back to what I said at the very beginning. I mean, embrace NMT, be open-minded. Neural machine translation is not a hoax. It is here to stay. It's not going to fade away. And I think it's very important that you have a positive attitude towards it. Think of it as a tool to make you more productive rather than something that will replace you, because it definitely won't. But use it to your advantage. And also, which is very important to our collaboration, feedback. Give us feedback. I mean, this NMT journey that we're going on together it's a two-way street. We need you to help us to improve our NMT processes. We want to help you so that you can enhance your post-editing skills. It's a fast-growing and changing area where we all still learning. And I mean, there are so many new technologies every year, so we just have to embrace it. So for example, if you just finish a horrible post-editing job, don't just take it out on your partner or on your dog. Give your language manager some constructive feedback. Call him or her, call them up. So we need your help to understand. I mean, we need to know, where is NMT working well? Where does it work less well? Are there places where we don't use NMT, but maybe we could test it? Or other places where we already use MT, but maybe we shouldn't. So, I mean, give your feedback on a job level, but also you can always get in touch with your head language manager for a more detailed chat. So please give us always regular feedback. Here are some useful resources that I've mentioned a few minutes ago. I mean, we have an NMT page on our website. Check it out if you'd like to know more about it. Then also there is the SDL post-editing certification. All our language managers, they have to do it, so I can highly recommend it. Then also we have quite a few blog posts on post-editing and NMT in general. And if you're also interested in more courses, I mean, there are some good courses from the BDU and also from the Zurich University of Applied Sciences. And also always feel free to check out the info center with the service descriptions, where you find what we expect of post editing. All right, I'm now over with my presentation. I would now happily take your questions, if there are any. So there are already some questions. One person asks, what NMT engines do you currently work with, and which one do you consider to be the best? So currently we're doing a test with Tilde. This is the dynamic learning engine. We've been using it for a few clients. And it's very helpful to see how it improves. We don't know yet whether we're going to switch to it definitely. But I mean, it's hard to say which one is the best, because it really depends what the customer wants. I mean, if there is specific terminology, it might make sense to use an engine that is trained. But if a client always orders product texts that are pretty much always the same, we can also very well work with DeepL. So it's hard to say which one is actually the best. Yeah, we've also tried, I mean, with Tilde, we're trying as I said, the dynamic learning, but we've also did test where we fed in a lot of segments, and then the engine was trained beforehand. We've also tested that. So it really depends what you're actually looking for. It's difficult to say this one is the best engine. And also, I mean, the technology changes so much, right? So we don't really know. Maybe next year, Google Translate will be the best engine. Maybe one of the Asian language, one of the MT developers in the Asian with Asian language who are specializing in Asian languages, they might overtake DeepL or Google when it comes to the quality output. So we never know, right? So there is another question. You were talking about different resources and trainings. Which one would you especially recommend? I think I could definitely recommend the STL post editing certification. It helps you better to understand how the engine works, and it will give you also some tips how actually you can practice post editing. I mean, all our language managers, as I said, they need to go through this training. There is also, we've sent a few language managers, I think, also to a training course of the ZHAW, so the Zurich University of Applied Sciences. It is also quite an interesting course. It really depends what you're looking for. I would recommend that you start with the STL post editing certification, and then if you want to dig deeper, you can attend another course also in Berlin. I guess there are courses from the BDU in all around Germany. I guess in France there are also a lot of providers. What I recommend, talk to your head language manager. They might be able to recommend you a more specific course in your language. There is another question. Is NMT cheaper for the client? As I said, I think we should more focus on quality standards and not about services. So what quality does the client want? Does the client want to translate a segment, an email, for example, that is only meant to be sent around internally, and once all the employees have read it, then it will just lose its content, its importance. So yes, there obviously NMT will be cheaper for the client. So basically, we always try to sit together with the client if they're interested in an NMT solution, if they'd like to have that part of their services that we offer. Do we have more questions? Let me just click through some more. There is another one. Many in the industry agree that NMT will further encourage a shift from word rates to hourly rates, to which I agree. How does Supertext handles payments for NMTP, word rate or hourly rate, and how do you sell it to the customer? So I think it's important. I mean, I can talk about the freelancer perspective. How we sell it to the client, that's more of a sales question, but I know that we're currently working on trying to make it as easy as possible for the client, because it will be complicated if they have prices for an hourly rate and then they pay us per word and again per hour, maybe again per line. So we try to make it as simple as possible for the client. But for us, as the quality varies hugely depending on the text type. For now, we've always paid you guys, the freelancers, an hourly rate, because I think that makes more sense. But we're also looking into, now that we're gaining more and more experience with post editing, and we see which kind of text that definitely work for NMT, we're also kind of currently thinking about maybe using a words rate. Are there any other questions? All right, so I suggest that we'll take a break till 2 o'clock, so 23 minutes. There will be a timer on the screen, and then you will know when you will get back. After the break, we will discuss the poll results, and then Fabian and Remy will take over then with their presentation. So I see you guys in 22 minutes.